The east wing door unlocked itself the night I turned 33. I was in the kitchen when it happened, sorting through Aunt Marlene's papers, trying to understand why she'd left me a house with 23 rooms when she'd only used 7. The sound that made me look up wasn't the lock turning. It was the silence afterward, the kind that happens when something holding its breath finally exhales. When I reached the main hall, the door stood open, not cracked, fully open, like it had been waiting and was done being patient. The 3 deadbolts Aunt Marlene installed were turned back, brass catches gleaming like they'd been oiled that morning. But Marlene had been dead 6 weeks. I was alone in the house. I should have closed it, should have called a locksmith. Instead, I stepped through and found a bedroom that looked like someone had left 15 minutes ago. The bed perfectly made, a water glass on the nightstand, still cold to the touch. Then I saw the photographs. 7 women, all with my exact face. My name is Claire Hendricks, and I inherited Marlene House 3 days after my 33rd birthday. The lawyer handling Aunt Marlene's estate, a man named Pettigrew with an office above the antique store on Main Street, seemed apologetic when he handed me the deed. Miss Marlene was very specific. The house goes to you. Only you. No option to sell for the first year. I'd barely known her. Aunt Marlene, my father's oldest sister, left our family when I was 5, moved back to Natchez after what my mother called the disagreement. Growing up in Illinois, I received a birthday card from her every year. Same message in careful handwriting. When you're ready, the house will be waiting. I thought it was just something old Southern women said. Natchez sits on the Mississippi bluffs like something that forgot to let go. The antebellum mansions still stand on original foundations, white columns holding up galleries where women in hoop skirts watch the river trade. Marlene House wasn't one of those showpieces. Built in 1847, set back on Cemetery Road, surrounded by live oaks grown so thick their branches wove together overhead. The house was beautiful the way old things are when they refuse to decay. 3 stories of red brick, deep galleries on east and west, and an unused wing stretching out like an arm reaching toward something in the dark. No one told me why that wing stayed closed. When I asked my father once, he shook his head. Some things Marlene kept to herself. Best to let them stay that way. Before we continue, subscribe if you want to keep hearing stories like this. Stories these houses were never meant to tell. The unused wing smelled different. Not musty or forgotten. Different. Like cut flowers in a closed room. Sweet, but wrong. Sweet the way things are when they've been preserved past when they should have rotted. The hallway stretched 40 feet, lit by windows facing the oak grove. Afternoon sun came through in amber columns, catching dust motes that hung suspended like they'd been placed there deliberately. 6 doors, 3 on each side, all closed. All with original glass knobs that caught light and threw back small rainbows. My footsteps on the pine floors didn't echo right. The first door I tried was locked. Second, too. The third turned easily, and I stepped into the bedroom that would change everything I thought I understood about inheritance. The bed was made with hospital corners on cream sheets, a quilt folded at the foot with the precision of someone taught that how you kept a bed said something about character. A water glass on the nightstand, half full, with condensation beating on the wood beneath. Impossible. Marlene had been dead 6 weeks. The house locked while the estate processed. I'd been here 3 days and hadn't entered this wing. No one had. I touched the glass, cold. My hand jerked back like I'd been shocked. That's when I saw the photographs arranged on the dresser. 7 frames graduating in size. 7 women, all looking like me. Not similar the way cousins share a nose or jawline. Like me the way a photograph of yourself looks like you. Same dark hair, same narrow face, same small scar above the left eyebrow from where I fell on the playground at 7. But the photographs were old. The kind where the chemistry itself has yellowed, where subjects stand too still because exposure times were long and movement meant blur. The smallest frame showed a woman in a 1920s dress, standing before Marlene House. Next, 1940s. Same place, same posture. The pattern continued through the decades. 60s, 80s, 2000s. The largest frame held a photograph I recognized immediately. Me. Last year. My birthday dinner in Chicago. The blue dress I'd bought specifically for that night, standing outside the restaurant with my roommate's arm around my shoulders. The photo I'd posted to Instagram and deleted 2 hours later because I didn't like my smile. Here it was. Printed. Framed. Arranged with 6 other women sharing my exact face across a century. I heard the door close behind me. Not slam. Just close. with the soft click of a latch catching the way a door closes when someone shuts it carefully because they don't want to startle you. The glass knob turned from the outside. All 3 deadbolts on the wing's entrance slid home with small, final sounds. I was alone in a bedroom that shouldn't exist, looking at a photograph that couldn't be there, in a house that had just locked me inside a wing I'd been told my entire life never to enter. I tried the bedroom door, locked from the outside. Tried the window, painted shut so many times the frame and sill had become one surface. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, even, deliberate. I knew I was alone. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard fabric moving, like someone in a long dress walking, hem brushing the floors. Hello? My voice came out smaller than intended. The sound stopped. Then very clearly a woman's voice. You're late. Not angry, not accusing, just stating fact, the way you'd tell someone the time if they'd asked. I stepped back from the door. My mind raced for explanations. Old houses carried sound strangely. What I'd heard could have been wind in the oaks, could have been the house settling, could have been anything except what it sounded like. A woman who'd been waiting and was disappointed I hadn't arrived on schedule. The door unlocked. I heard it happen. 3 distinct clicks as the deadbolt slid back. The glass knob turned, and the door opened 6 inches, not all the way, just enough to be an invitation. Every rational part of me screamed to leave. Walk out of this wing, out of Marlene House entirely, drive back to Illinois and let Pettigrew handle whatever nightmare I'd inherited. Instead, I opened the door wider and stepped into the hallway. The light had changed. Still amber through the windows, but angled differently now, like hours had passed instead of minutes. The suspended dust motes were gone. All 6 doors stood open. I walked to the nearest, second room on the left, and stopped in the doorway. A nursery, not decorated like a nursery, not prepared for a baby that might arrive, actively in use. The crib still held the indent of a small body, baby blankets folded on a rocking chair. A mobile hanging above the crib turned slowly even though there was no breeze. The mobile played music, Brahms' Lullaby, the same melody from the jewelry box my mother kept on her dresser, the one I'd open as a child to watch the little ballerina spin. But there was no music box here, no wind-up mechanism, just a mobile turning and playing, its porcelain animals casting small shadows on nursery walls. I backed out and moved to the next door, a sitting room arranged for 2, matching chairs angled toward each other, tea service on the table between them, steam rising from the pot. Across the hall, a study with books on the desk, fountain pen uncapped, ink still wet on a half-finished letter. Every room was occupied by absence. Occupied by people who'd just stepped out and were coming right back, who'd left their lives mid-sentence and would return any moment to finish. I reached the hallway's end and found a door I hadn't noticed before, narrower than the others. Plain wood, no glass knob, just a simple iron latch. It opened onto stairs leading up. I climbed because that's what you do in houses like this, in moments when you've stopped trying to explain and started trying to understand. The stairs led to a single room taking up the entire 3rd floor of the unused wing, empty except for a full-length mirror against the far wall, its frame carved from dark wood shaped into something that looked almost like reaching hands. I walked toward it because in rooms like this, in houses like this, that's what you do. My reflection looked wrong, not distorted, not aged, just wrong. Like I was looking at someone who looked exactly like me but was making slightly different choices. My reflection's head tilted at an angle I wasn't holding, her hands at her sides when mine were clenched. She smiled. I didn't. Then she stepped back, away from the mirror's surface, deeper into whatever space existed on the other side, and I saw what was behind her. 6 women, standing in a line, all wearing the clothes from the photographs downstairs, all with my face. The woman in the 1920s dress stepped forward and pressed her palm against the inside of the mirror, aligning perfectly with mine on the outside of the glass. "You're late," she said, voice muffled but clear. "But you're here now. That's what matters." I jerked my hand back. All 7 women, my reflection and the 6 others, moved in unison, heads turning to look at something I couldn't see. Then they stepped aside, revealing what was behind them. A door, not a reflection of a door. An actual door standing in whatever impossible space existed inside the mirror. It was opening. I ran, down the narrow stairs, through the hallway where every open door showed rooms that shouldn't exist, past the sitting room where 2 teacups steamed, past the nursery where the mobile had stopped turning but somehow kept playing. The main wing door was locked. Of course it was. I pressed my back against it and forced myself to think. The windows were old, but they were glass. Glass broke. I could break one, climb through, deal with cuts because anything was better than staying in a wing where mirrors held women with my face, and doors opened into impossible spaces. I picked up the rocking chair from the nursery. Heavy oak, solid enough to do damage. When I swung it at the window, it bounced off like I'd hit a wall. The glass didn't crack, didn't even shudder. The impact traveled up my arms into my shoulders, but the window stayed perfectly intact. I tried again, and again, and again, until my hands shook and my shoulders screamed, and I had to accept that whatever this house was made of, it wasn't breakable by anything I had strength to do. I sat on the hallway floor and tried to find rational explanations. Aunt Marlene had been old, 87 when she died, old enough that memories blurred, that past and present overlapped, that a woman might start seeing her younger self in a grandniece she barely knew. The photographs made sense that way. Marlene collecting pictures of family members who resembled her, building a gallery of genetic coincidence, documenting how traits traveled through bloodlines. The locked doors made sense too. Old houses settled. Humidity made wood swell. A door closed for decades might stick, might seem locked when it was just stubborn. The deadbolts could have been faulty. Old mechanisms that finally gave up. Springs compressed so long they'd lost tension and just released. The water glass was harder to explain, but not impossible. Condensation formed on cold glass and humid air. Natchez in October was nothing but humidity, thick and sweet, and heavy enough to leave a film on your skin. This was grief, maybe. Stress of inheritance. Of leaving my job in Chicago and driving 12 hours to a town where I knew no one. Of sleeping in a house where every room reminded me I was a stranger to my own family history. Grief did strange things to perception. Made you see patterns that weren't there. Made coincidence feel like conspiracy. The voice I'd heard could have been wind. The mobile could have been triggered by air currents. The photographs were real. I'd touched them, held them, seen my own face in a frame, in a photograph taken last year that should never have been in this house. But even that had explanations. Marlene could have found my Instagram somehow. Could have printed photos without my knowledge. Could have been building this gallery for years, watching from Natchez as I lived my life in Illinois, waiting for the moment when I'd be old enough to inherit. Old enough, 33. The same age in every photograph. I stood up slowly, a new understanding forming. Marlene hadn't been collecting random family photos. She'd been documenting something. A pattern, a timeline. Women who all looked like me, all photographed at the same age, all standing in front of the same house. It was still explainable. Genetics worked like that sometimes. Traits could skip generations, resurface, create eerie resemblances. And 33 was arbitrary, probably just when Marlene had inherited the house herself, the age that mattered to her. So she'd collected photos of family members at that same milestone. The tea steam was harder to explain. The wet ink, the cold water glass. But old houses had strange microclimates. Humidity could condense and look like steam. Ink could stay wet in sealed rooms. Water could stay cold in... No, I was lying to myself, and I knew it. I walked back to the bedroom with the photographs and looked at them again. Really looked. The women weren't just similar. They were identical. Same bone structure. Same exact scar above the left eyebrow. Same mole on the right cheek I'd always hated. This wasn't genetics. This was something else. I opened the dresser drawers, searching for something that might explain what Marlene had been doing. The first drawer held linens, perfectly folded. The second held letters, tied with ribbon, addressed to various names I didn't recognize. The third held a Bible, old, leather-bound, with a family tree inscribed on the inside cover in multiple hands. I traced the lines with my finger. The first entry was dated 1847. Thomas Hendricks and Margaret Hendricks, née Walsh. They had 4 children. The oldest daughter, Catherine, born 1848. Catherine married in 1870, had 4 children. Oldest daughter, Elizabeth, born 1871. Elizabeth married in 1893, had 3 children. Oldest daughter, Alice, born 1894. The pattern continued, generation after generation. Always the oldest daughter, always married, always having children, always producing another oldest daughter to continue the line. Until my finger stopped on a name, Anna Hendricks, born 1900, died 1933, no husband listed, no children, just those 2 dates and a small notation in different handwriting. First daughter, unmarried. The next entry. Margaret Hendricks, born 1901, died 1945. First daughter of second daughter, unmarried. Then Ruth, then Catherine again, then Marlene, all unmarried, all dying in this house. All first daughters, or, when there was no first daughter, the first daughter of a second daughter. All dying at, I did the math quickly, Anna, 33, Margaret, 44, Ruth, 51, Catherine, 39, Marlene, 87. No pattern in death age, but there was a pattern in the family tree. After Anna, something had changed. The first daughter stopped marrying, stopped having children, stayed in Natchez, stayed in this house. I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, even, deliberate. I turned. The woman in the 1920s dress stood in the doorway. Not a reflection now, not an image. Actually there, solid and real, with eyes that held something older than her clothes. "You're looking at the Bible," she said. She had a Mississippi accent, softer than mine, vowels drawn out like pulled taffy. "That's good. It's important to understand where you come from. Who are you?" "Anna Hendricks, your 4 times great aunt. Though I suppose at this point, the great part doesn't matter much." She walked into the room like she'd done it 1,000 times before, like this was her bedroom, not mine. "You're not real," I said. "I'm as real as this house needs me to be." Anna moved to the window, looking out at the oak grove. In the late afternoon light, I could see through her, just slightly, just enough to know she wasn't entirely there. "Let me show you something," she said. The room changed. Not dramatically, not in any way I could point to and say definitively, "That's different." But the light shifted. The shadows fell at new angles. The bed that had been against the north wall was now against the east wall. The photographs that had been arranged by size were now arranged by date. "The house remembers everything," Anna said. "Every version of itself, every configuration, every person who ever lived within these walls. And when it wants to show you something, it rearranges itself until the truth becomes visible. This isn't possible. You keep saying that, but you're standing here talking to me, in a room that's changed around you. At what point do you accept that possible means something different inside these walls?" She gestured toward the photographs. "Do you know what these really are? They're not just pictures, they're anchors. Points where the house's memory intersects with physical reality. Each woman you see, each of us, gave the house something it needed, and in return, the house preserved us. Preserved you how? You're dead. Am I?" Anna smiled. "I died in 1933. My body is in Natchez Cemetery in the Hendricks family plot, but I'm also here, talking to you, walking through rooms I haven't physically occupied in almost a century. So what does dead mean when the house remembers you strongly enough to keep you conscious?" I backed toward the door. "Don't run," Anna said. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you understand what you've inherited. I inherited a house. You inherited much more than that." The room changed again. The bed disappeared. The dresser vanished. We were standing in an empty room with bare walls and pine floors that looked freshly laid. "This is 1847, Anna said. "The year the house was built. Your 4 times great-grandfather, Thomas Hendricks, was a shipping merchant, made his fortune on the river trade. He wanted a house that would last, that would be remembered, that would make his family's name mean something in Natchez." The walls around us began to fill in. Wallpaper appeared, pattern by pattern. Furniture materialized like it was being drawn into existence. But Thomas wanted more than just a house that would last. He wanted a house that would ensure his family's prosperity, ensure that no matter what happened, war, economic collapse, disaster, the Hendricks family would endure. "He made a bargain," I said slowly. Anna nodded. "With something that lived in the ground where the house now stands. Something old, something that understood the value of memory and continuity." The room filled in completely around us. Now, it was a bedroom from the 1850s, heavy furniture, thick curtains, oil lamps on the dresser. "The bargain was simple," Anna continued. "The house would protect the family, would ensure prosperity, would never burn, never flood, never fall to decay. But in return, the house needed something to remember, something to keep it conscious, something to give it purpose. First daughters, I whispered. First daughters, Anna confirmed. Unbroken, generation after generation. We don't just live here. We become part of the house's memory, part of what makes it aware. But you said you died at 33. The Bible showed first daughters after you lived much longer. Because I broke the pattern, Anna interrupted. I tried to leave. I got engaged to a man from Vicksburg. We planned to move away, start fresh. But the house," her voice trailed off. The room around us darkened. "The house doesn't punish you directly. It can't. The bargain has rules, but it can create circumstances. It can arrange coincidences. It can make sure that anyone you try to love, anyone who might give you a reason to leave, suffers consequences until you choose the house over them. What happened to your fiancé? He died, a week before our wedding, fell from his horse on a clear day, on flat ground, with no explanation for why the horse bolted. And I knew with absolute certainty that the house had done it, that my trying to leave had killed him." The darkness in the room felt oppressive now, like it was pressing against my skin. "So I stayed," Anna said, "but I refused to marry anyone else, refused to have children, refused to produce another first daughter for the house to claim. I thought if I broke the pattern, the house would have to release me, but it didn't. No, it just waited. And when I died at 33, my heart stopped one morning, no warning, no illness, just stopped. The house found another first daughter, Margaret, my younger sister's oldest child, and the pattern continued. The room around us shifted back to the present, back to the bedroom with the photographs. Every first daughter since me has tried something different, Anna said. Margaret tried to burn the house down. It wouldn't burn. Ruth tried to sell it. Every buyer withdrew their offer before closing. Catherine tried to simply walk away and never return. She made it 6 months before she came back, driven by dreams so vivid she couldn't tell sleeping from waking anymore. And Marlene? Marlene was the smartest of all of us. She accepted it, lived here for 40 years, never tried to leave, never tried to fight. She preserved the house, maintained it, kept the bargain intact. And in return, the house let her live to 87. Anna stepped closer to me, but even Marlene couldn't break the pattern. Because the house needs more than just one woman living within its walls. It needs continuity. It needs the promise that there will always be a next first daughter. And since none of us after me had children, the house found you. I'm not a first daughter, I said. My father had an older brother. But your father was Marlene's youngest brother's only son, and you're his only child. In the absence of a direct first daughter, the house follows the bloodline. It finds the closest match, and here you are. The photographs on the dresser began to glow with soft light. The house has been watching you your whole life, Anna said, waiting for you to turn 33, waiting for you to be the right age, the right distance from your old life, the right combination of alone and searching that would make you willing to accept what you've inherited. I'm not willing, aren't you? You drove 12 hours to get here. You could have refused the inheritance. Pettigrew would have understood. But you came. You stood on that gallery and looked at this house and felt something, didn't you? A pull. A recognition. A sense that you'd been here before even though you hadn't. I wanted to deny it, but she was right. Standing on the gallery that first day, I'd felt something. Not déjà vu exactly. More like homecoming. That's the house, Anna said, calling to what's already in your blood. What's been passed down through generations. The bargain isn't just written in deeds and wills. It's written in you. In your cells, in the part of you that recognizes this place as yours, even though you've never lived here. The door to the bedroom opened on its own. Beyond it, the hallway had changed. The 6 doors were gone. Now there was just one door at the end of the hall. Massive, oak, with an iron handle shaped like a key. That's the threshold, Anna said, between what you were and what you'll become. Between the life you thought you'd have and the life you've always been meant for. I don't want this. None of us did, but want doesn't matter anymore. You're here. You're 33. The house has opened itself to you. All that's left is choosing whether you walk through that door willingly or whether the house has to make the choice for you. I left the bedroom and walked toward the door at the end of the hall. Not because Anna told me to. Not because I'd accepted anything she'd said, but because I needed to know what was on the other side. Needed to understand what the house wanted badly enough to preserve 7 generations of women who all wore my face. The iron handle was cold against my palm. When I turned it, the door opened without resistance. Beyond was a room I'd never seen before. It was circular, with walls made of something that wasn't quite brick and wasn't quite stone. The floor was dirt, packed hard and smooth, but still dirt, as if the house had been built around this space rather than over it. In the center of the room stood a well. Not a decorative well, a real one, old and deep, with a wooden cover that had rotted through in places. When I approached it, I could smell the water below, cold and mineral-rich, the kind that came from deep in the earth. "This is where it started," Anna said from behind me. She'd followed me through the door, though I hadn't heard her footsteps. "This is what Thomas Hendricks found when he was surveying the land in 1846. A well that had been here long before anyone built houses in Natchez, long before the town existed, maybe long before there were people here at all." I knelt beside the well and looked down. The opening was too dark to see bottom, but I could hear water moving down there, not flowing like a stream, moving deliberately, like something was disturbing it from below. "He should have left it alone," Anna continued. "Should have built the house somewhere else. But Thomas was ambitious, proud. He believed that everything in the natural world could be owned, controlled, bent to human purpose. So when he felt the pull from this well, when he dreamed about it every night, when he heard it calling to him, he didn't run. He bargained. With what? The house doesn't have words for it. Doesn't have a name we'd recognize. But Thomas knew it was old, knew it remembered things that had been forgotten before written history began. And he knew it wanted something that only humans could provide: continuity. Anna knelt beside me, looking down into the dark. Things that old don't reproduce the way we do, don't create offspring. They persist by being remembered, by having their existence acknowledged generation after generation. Thomas offered that acknowledgement, promised that his family would remember, would preserve, would keep the house, and by extension, what lived beneath it, conscious and aware. "The well is what made the bargain," I said slowly. "The well is what accepted the bargain, and the house is what enforces it." I stood up and walked the perimeter of the room. There were no windows, no other doors, just the circular wall and the well, and a feeling that I was standing in a space that existed outside normal geometry. Why first daughters specifically? Because daughters carry the bloodline in ways sons don't. Because daughters have always been the keepers of memory in cultures older than ours. Because the thing beneath the well understood that if you wanted to ensure generations of remembering, you needed women who would be tied to this place by bonds stronger than choice. Anna touched the wall, and symbols appeared where her fingers traced. Not carved, just appearing, like they'd always been there, but only became visible when someone looked at them right. "Each first daughter adds to what the house remembers," she said. "Our lives, our choices, our refusals and acceptances. All of it becomes part of the house's consciousness, makes it more aware, more capable of maintaining the bargain. And if the pattern breaks, if there are no more first daughters, we don't know. None of us have ever broken it completely. Margaret tried. I tried, but the house always found a way to continue the line, even if it meant skipping to second daughters or reaching into distant branches of the family tree. The symbols on the wall were glowing now, soft phosphorescent light that didn't illuminate anything but themselves. "What happens if I leave?" I asked. Anna was quiet for a long moment. "The house will follow, not physically, but it will follow through connection, through the people you care about. It will create circumstances around them, accidents that aren't quite accidents, illnesses that aren't quite natural, opportunities that fall through for no clear reason. It won't hurt them directly. The bargain has rules, but it will make your presence in their lives a liability until staying away feels like the only way to protect them. That's evil. That's preservation. The house doesn't think in terms of good or evil. It thinks in terms of continuing or ending. And it will do whatever it takes to continue." I thought about my roommate in Chicago, my friends, my former co-workers, everyone who'd texted me in the past 3 days, worried because I'd gone silent. "My phone died," I said, "in the bedroom. It just stopped working. Because you were starting to think about calling people, starting to maintain connections that might pull you back to Illinois. The house can't allow that. Not until you've made your choice." "What choice?" "You're saying I don't have one. You have the most important choice of all," Anna said. "You can accept what you are willingly and live a long life like Marlene did, or you can fight it and die young like I did. But either way, you're staying. The only question is whether you spend your time here at peace or at war. If you're still listening, you're already part of this house." The water in the well began to move more aggressively. I could hear it sloshing against stone, rising and falling like breath. "It knows you're here," Anna said. "Knows you're close to understanding. The well has been waiting for you just as long as the house has." "I want to see it," I said. "Whatever's down there, whatever Thomas bargained with, I want to see it." Anna's expression was unreadable. "Are you sure?" I'm not accepting anything blind. If I'm supposed to spend my life preserving this bargain, I have the right to know what I'm preserving. She considered this, then nodded. The house respects knowledge, respects the desire to understand. Yes, you can see. She walked to the well and placed both hands on the rotted wooden cover. It didn't move when she pushed. She was too insubstantial to affect physical objects. But the cover moved anyway, sliding aside like it was following her intention rather than her touch. The smell that rose from the well was overwhelming. Not bad, not rotten, just ancient. Like stones that had been underground so long they'd absorbed the weight of everything that had ever died and decayed above them. Anna gestured toward the opening. I approached slowly and looked down. At first, all I saw was darkness and the glimmer of water far below. Then my eyes adjusted, and I realized the water wasn't water. It was memory. I don't know how I knew that. Don't know how to explain what it looked like or how it moved, but I understood with absolute certainty that what filled the well wasn't liquid, but accumulated memory. Every thought, every moment, every experience of every person who'd ever been remembered in this house, distilled and preserved and kept conscious by the bargain. And at the bottom of the well, something stirred, not rising toward me, just acknowledging that I was there, acknowledging that after 33 years, another first daughter had finally come to see what she'd inherited. I stepped back from the well, my heart pounding. Now you understand, Anna said quietly. This is what we preserve, not just a house, not just a family name, but memory itself, consciousness itself, the ability to know and be known across generations. It's using us, I whispered. We're using each other, Anna corrected. The house gives us purpose, protection, a place in history, and we give it continuity. Neither of us can exist without the other anymore. The bargain has been in place too long. We're intertwined. Anna led me back through the house, but it wasn't the house I'd entered. The hallways had multiplied. Rooms opened into other rooms that couldn't exist in the physical structure I'd walked through earlier. We passed through a kitchen from the 1890s where bread was rising in pans, even though no one had kneaded dough. We passed through a parlor from the 1920s where a phonograph played music to an empty room. We passed through a bedroom from the 1960s where a diary lay open on the nightstand, its pages filling themselves with handwriting that appeared and disappeared like breath on glass. The house remembers all its versions simultaneously, Anna explained as we walked. Linear time is a human constraint. The house exists in all its moments at once. What you're seeing now is what the house has always been, what it will always be. We stopped in a library I didn't remember seeing before. The shelves held books, but when I looked closer, they weren't books. They were journals, hundreds of them. Leather-bound volumes arranged chronologically, each one labeled with a name and dates. Every first daughter who ever lived here kept journals, Anna said. The house preserves them, makes them accessible to the next in line. So you can read our stories, understand our choices, learn from what we did right and what we did wrong. I pulled one from the shelf at random. The name on the spine read, Margaret Hendricks, 1923-1945. I opened it to a random page. April 3rd, 1944. I tried to burn the house down today. Used kerosene from the lamp oil. Poured it through the east wing. Soaked the curtains. Lit a match. The flames caught. I saw them spread. But then they just stopped. Like they hit an invisible wall. The curtains smoked but wouldn't burn. The floors blackened but wouldn't catch. I stood there for an hour, watching flames that should have consumed everything just dance across surfaces without doing any damage. The house is patient with me. That's what makes it unbearable. If it were angry, if it punished me for trying to destroy it, I could hate it properly. But it just absorbs my rebellion like water absorbing rain. It knows I'll stop eventually. Knows I'll accept. Knows I have nowhere else to go because everywhere else, I'm the woman whose mother died young, whose grandmother died young, whose great-grandmother died young, the woman whose family is cursed. But it's not a curse. That's the terrible truth I'm starting to understand. It's a trade, and my ancestors made it willingly. I closed the journal, hands shaking. Margaret tried the hardest of all of us to break free, Anna said. She attempted suicide 3 times. The house wouldn't let her die, brought her back each time, not out of cruelty, out of necessity. The bargain required her presence. How did she die then? She stopped fighting, accepted that she would spend her life here. And the moment she truly accepted it, not just gave up, but genuinely made peace with her role, her heart stopped. Like the house had been keeping her alive through sheer will. And once that will wasn't necessary anymore, it let her go. I replaced Margaret's journal and pulled another. Catherine Hendricks, 1955-1994, November 12th, 1988. I've been gone 6 months, living in Atlanta, working at a law firm, dating a kind man who knows nothing about Natchez or family obligations. I should be happy. I should be building the life I always wanted, but the dreams won't stop. Every night, I'm back in the house, walking through the unused wing, standing in front of the well, and every night, the thing beneath the well asks me the same question. How long can you run from what you are? My boyfriend got sick last week. Nothing serious. Just a flu. But he's not getting better. The doctors can't explain why. And I know with the certainty that only comes from blood and bone and generations of women who learned this lesson before me, that he won't get better until I go back. I'm leaving tomorrow. Not because I want to. Because the alternative is watching him die slowly while I pretend I don't know why. I looked at Anna. You said the house can't hurt people directly. It can't, but it can create circumstances, can arrange susceptibilities, can make sure that someone who might normally fight off an illness doesn't. The bargain has rules, but those rules have spaces between them. The house knows how to work in those spaces. I pulled more journals, read entries from Ruth, from Elizabeth, from Catherine I. Every story was the same in its broad strokes. A woman who inherited the house, tried to leave, found that leaving created consequences for anyone she cared about, and eventually returned. Not all of them survived. Anna had died at 33. So had another Catherine, the one from the 1870s. Both had chosen to fight the house rather than accept it, and both had died young. But the ones who accepted lived long lives. Marlene's 87 years, Ruth's 51, Elizabeth's 63. The house rewarded acceptance with time, rewarded preservation with longevity. It's a trade, I said slowly. That's what Margaret wrote, not a curse. A trade, yes. Anna walked to a window that looked out over the oak grove, even though we were in an interior library with no windows. Your ancestors traded freedom for protection, traded the ability to leave for the promise that the house would endure, and every generation since has had to decide whether that trade is worth maintaining. What if I say no? What if I refuse the trade entirely? Then you'll die like I did. And the house will find the next woman in the bloodline who can accept it. It might skip to a cousin, might reach back to a second daughter's child, might wait a generation and claim your niece if you have a sibling who has children. But the pattern will continue. It always continues. I sat down in a chair that appeared exactly when I needed it, in exactly the right position to catch me. There's no escape, I said. There's no escape from what you are, Anna corrected. But what you are isn't a prison. It's a purpose. The house needs you. The well needs you. And in return, you'll be part of something that has existed for almost 200 years. You'll be part of a continuity that transcends individual life. You'll be remembered perfectly, completely, forever. I'll be trapped. You'll be preserved. There's a difference. The library around us began to fade. The books became transparent. The shelves dissolved into mist. I'm running out of time to maintain this form, Anna said. The house can only hold us conscious for so long before we have to return to the well, to the memory. But before I go, I need you to understand something. She stepped closer, and for just a moment she looked completely solid, completely real. Every first daughter who came before you chose to stay, not because the house forced them, but because after they spent time here, after they read the journals, after they understood the bargain, they realized that being part of something larger than themselves was worth the cost of freedom. Even you? You died trying to leave. I died trying to cheat the bargain, trying to keep both the protection of the house and the life I wanted outside it. I wasn't refusing the trade. I was trying to renegotiate it, and the house doesn't renegotiate. She began to fade, her outline becoming indistinct. But if I had truly refused, if I had walked away knowing I'd never be protected again, never have the house's support, never be part of this continuity, the house would have let me go. It would have found someone else, and I would have lived free. Then why didn't you? Anna smiled sadly. Because I was a coward. Because I wanted the protection more than I wanted the freedom. And in the end, that contradiction killed me. She disappeared completely, leaving me alone in a library that was slowly becoming just a regular room in a regular house. I spent the next 2 days reading journals. The wing's door had unlocked itself. I could leave any time I wanted, could walk to my car, drive away, return to Illinois. But I didn't. Not because the house was preventing me, but because I needed to know the full story before I made any decision. The journals told me everything. I learned that Thomas Hendricks had been a spiritualist, interested in communing with what he called primordial consciousnesses, that he'd found the well while surveying land, and had immediately recognized it as something ancient, something aware. I learned that his bargain had been specific. First daughters would maintain the house and acknowledge what lived beneath it. In return, the Hendricks family would prosper. Their businesses would succeed. Their investments would pay off. They would be protected from the disasters that struck other families: fires, floods, yellow fever epidemics that devastated Natchez in the 1800s. The bargain had worked. The Hendricks family had thrived for generations. But prosperity had a cost. First daughters couldn't leave, couldn't marry outside the family's sphere of influence, couldn't produce heirs who might pull them away from Natchez. After Anna's death, the pattern had shifted. First daughters stopped marrying at all, stopped having children, became caretakers of memory rather than creators of new life. Marlene's journals were the longest, 40 years of entries. I read them chronologically, watching her transform from a resentful young woman who'd fled to Memphis to escape her mother's expectations to an older woman who'd made peace with her role. Her final entries were the most revealing. March 1st, 2024. I'm 87 today. My hands shake so much I can barely hold the pen, but I need to write this before I lose the clarity to do so. I've been thinking about Claire, my grandniece. I've never met her, but I've been watching from a distance. Birthday cards, social media, the occasional phone call with her father. She's so much like I was at her age, searching for something, unsure of her place in the world, ready for purpose even if she doesn't know it yet. The house has been showing me things. Visions of her standing in the unused wing, looking at the photographs, understanding what she's inherited. I think she'll accept it. I think she has the strength I never quite found. But I'm leaving her a choice. That's the one thing I can do differently. I can structure the inheritance so she has a full year before she has to decide whether to sell. I can give her time to explore, to read these journals, to understand the bargain completely before accepting it. If she chooses to leave, the house will find someone else. A second daughter's child, a cousin, someone. But I hope she stays. I hope she understands that preservation is its own form of creation, that memory is its own form of immortality. August 15th, 2024. I can feel the end coming. The house has been gentle with me, given me more time than most first daughters receive. But time is running out, and I'm ready. I've prepared everything for Claire, the documents, the journals, the unused wing. When she arrives, the house will open itself to her. We'll show her what she needs to see. We'll give her the choice that none of us were given clearly. Accept the bargain willingly, or walk away completely. I pray she chooses acceptance. Not because the house needs her. It will continue with or without her. But because I think she needs the house, needs the purpose, needs the certainty of knowing exactly what she's meant to do. September 1st, 2024. The house is singing. That's what I've started to call it when I can feel the well's consciousness rising through the floors. It happens when a transition is near, when the current first daughter is about to leave and the next one is about to arrive. Tomorrow I'll make the final arrangements with Pettigrew. Then I'll rest. The house will take care of everything else. Claire, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it has to be you. I'm sorry you didn't get a choice about being born into this bloodline, about carrying this responsibility. But I'm also grateful. Grateful that the house will have someone like you to preserve it. Someone strong enough to understand the trade, and wise enough to know that some things are worth preserving, even at great cost. Welcome home. That was Marlene's final entry. I closed the journal and sat in the library for a long time. The house had been quiet since Anna disappeared. No more impossible rooms, no more shifting configurations. Just a regular old house that happened to have an unused wing, and a well in its basement that contained accumulated memory. I walked to the circular room where the well stood. The wooden cover had been replaced, not with new wood, but with the same wood somehow restored to wholeness. I lifted it and looked down into the dark. I know you're there, I said. I know you're listening. The water moved, a small acknowledgement. I've read the journals. I understand the bargain. I understand what you want from me. The water moved again, more deliberately. I want to renegotiate. The water stopped moving entirely. I took a breath and continued. You want preservation, continuity, Someone to maintain the house and acknowledge your existence. I can give you that, but I won't give up my entire life, won't cut off contact with everyone I know, won't become a hermit like the first daughters before me. Silence from the well. I'll live here. I'll maintain the house. I'll preserve the journals and add my own, but I keep my phone. I keep my connections. I stay part of the world outside these walls. That's my offer. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the water began to rise, not spilling over, just rising, closer to the surface, so I could see it clearly for the first time. It was phosphorescent, glowing with soft light. And in that light, I could see shapes, faces, women who looked like me, all existing simultaneously in the same space. The water spoke, not in words, not in any language I could transcribe, but I understood it the way you understand meaning in dreams, the way you know things without knowing how you know them. The well said, "The bargain was made with Thomas. His terms specified isolation, but you are not Thomas. You may propose new terms. I'm proposing that I can serve the bargain and live a full life, that preservation doesn't require isolation. What will you give in exchange for this freedom?" I thought carefully. "I'll give you something none of the first daughters before me have given. I'll write the true history of this house. Not just journals for future first daughters, but a real history, something that can be shared, something that will make more people remember you. Isn't that what you want? To be remembered?" The water churned. The faces in the phosphorescence multiplied. "You would make our existence known? I would make your existence remembered, properly, completely, not as a secret passed down through bloodline, but as a story told to anyone who will listen." The water settled. The faces aligned, all of them looking at me with the same expression, consideration. "This is acceptable. But know this, if you break our bargain, if you use your freedom to leave and not return, the consequences will be swift. We will not wait generations to find a replacement. We will not be gentle. I understand. Then we accept your terms. Live here, maintain the house, preserve the memory, but remain connected to the world beyond these walls. Tell our story, make us remembered, and in return, you will live a long life. You will be protected. You will be part of something that transcends individual existence." The water began to recede, sinking back down into depths I couldn't see. I replaced the wooden cover and left the circular room. When I emerged into the unused wing, all the doors were open. All the rooms were visible. The bedroom with the photographs, the nursery with the mobile, the sitting room with the tea service, the study with the wet ink. But now I understood what they were. Not hauntings, not impossibilities. Just the house showing me its memory, showing me what it had preserved, what I was now part of preserving. I walked through the wing and into the main house. My phone was on the kitchen table where I'd left it days ago. When I picked it up, it turned on immediately, fully charged, with all my messages waiting. I called my roommate. "Claire, oh my God, I've been so worried." "I'm okay," I said. "I'm sorry I went silent. I've been processing. This house is bigger than I expected. Are you coming back to Chicago?" I looked around Marlene House, at the high ceilings, the original moldings, the light coming through the tall windows, the oak grove visible through the gallery doors. "No," I said. "I'm staying in Natchez. I'm keeping the house." "Seriously? But your job?" "I'll work remotely, or find something here. I haven't figured out all the details yet. But this house? It's mine, and I'm going to take care of it." We talked for an hour, made plans for her to visit, discussed how I'd handle the transition. By the time I hung up, I felt settled, certain. I walked back to the unused wing and stood in the doorway. The photographs on the dresser had changed. Now there were 8 frames, and in the 8th frame was a new photograph. Me, standing in this doorway, looking at the photographs. I couldn't see who'd taken it, couldn't see any camera, any photographer. But I knew who'd created it. The house. Preserving this moment, adding it to memory. I picked up my phone and took my own photograph. The unused wing hallway. The open doors. The rooms that shouldn't exist but did. Then I sat down at the desk in the study and opened a fresh journal. "My name is Claire Hendricks," I wrote. "I'm the 8th first daughter to inherit Marlene House, and this is the story of what these walls remember." Subscribe if you want to keep hearing stories about houses that hide what no one wanted to face. But I'm not hiding anything anymore. I'm writing it all down.